I'm the guy that takes you 0 to 100. But if I close $1 million deal for level up leads, you better, paint a mural of my face on the wall or something special. Like, I matter, right? I can see my impact. I can feel it. Like, I am keeping the lights on, right? So I wanted to be really, really good at this one thing, not somebody who's done okay at a million different things. Like, anything that we've all been in that is a pressurized situation, and if you do it time and time again, you start to get acclimated to that type of environment. What job is harder with a higher fail rate than a salesperson? I can't really find one. They mask it behind work smarter, not harder. I never understood why I can't just do both. Why do I have to be real strategic and make 4 calls today? Why can't I just be real strategic and make as many calls as I possibly can while also being strategic? Hard work and repetition and failure has gotten a bad rap. I think most people can grind and get to the top of the mountain once, but then once you've been there and you understand what it takes, I don't think many people want to put themselves through that day after day, month after month, year after year. I think the best sellers that I've ever been around have that. They don't burn out. They create new companies or new challenge. They're hungry for new challenges and opportunities to learn and to push themselves. They're trying to find their own limits. Communicate really fast and respond to everything. I would probably consider myself like an over communicator of sorts. I have learned over the years that people who don't operate this way are not great fits for me. I'm not looking to downshift and slow down, to appease other people and accommodate your schedule. You're coming to work with me because you want to get shit done and you want to get it done quickly. The go-to-network motion, the referral motion, that is the fastest, easiest way, I think, to go from 0 to $1 million in revenue that there is. Get a bunch of people to make mutual introductions. Everybody's asking about it. There's already trust. Those deals close faster, less churn, less support tickets, higher average contract values. Imagine you go to buy a car and the car salesman is telling you about every nut, bolt, and screw in the car, right? It's like, dude, I don't care about all that stuff, man. How much does it cost? What color do you have? And is it safe? Great. Get me the fuck out of here. Let me drive off the lot.
Welcome back to Prospecting Pros. We have Scott Leese and Chris Lingenfelter on the show today. Welcome.
Howdy.
What's up, guys?
So the way I like to start every show is just do a little bit of a background, a little bit of a deep dive into how you got to where you are today. So Scott, take it away. Not for too long, but keep it under a few minutes.
All right, keep it under a few minutes. I'm Scott Leese. I run my own sales and go-to-market consulting firm for the last 6+ years. I'm also the founder of a sales and revenue event called the Surf and Sales Summit. And I'm co-founder of a micro VC firm called Milos Ventures with my brother. I spent 20+ years building and scaling sales orgs in tech and in SaaS all around the world. I have now worked with and been a part of 12 unicorns and 15 exits. So all things scaling, selling, leadership, go-to-market, branding. This is the area that I have played in, and I've always kind of gravitated towards early stage. Like, I'm the guy that takes you 0 to 100. I'm not the guy that your publicly traded company calls in to turn the ship around. That has never been my cup of tea. So yeah, that's who I am, and that's a quick version. That's an under 1 minute version.
Yeah, that was quick. Well, I feel like the part that you dive headfirst into is actually the most challenging, because things aren't figured out, and that is the hardest thing. It's easier. It's when you're going to go into an existing company. There's a lot of they already have a brand. There are things in place that have been around for a while, but to just start from scratch is challenging. Tell me, why do you decide to do that, and where do you feel your specialty is in diagnosing those companies?
Yeah, I did. Whether it's more challenging than the opposite, I don't know. It is challenging, though. There's a reason why so few people gravitate to it and go back and do it over and over again. Most people do it once or twice and then say, the hell with this. It's too stressful, too nebulous, too much work, whatever. But I've always wanted to be a part of something special. and felt like I made a contribution. All right. And not to pick on any one particular company, but if we were all salespeople for Microsoft or something like that, all right. Now we close $1 million deal today. Nobody cares. We're a line item on a spreadsheet. Okay. But if I close $1 million deal for Level Up Leads, you better, paint a mural of my face on the wall or something special. Like, I matter, right? I can see my impact. I can feel it. Like, I am keeping the lights on, right? And I always wanted all that pressure. If you don't perform, you get fired. You do good, you get all the glory. I get that, right? I played sports my whole life. I played 2 sports in college. So that I never shied away from that kind of pressure. I was always the guy who wanted to take the last shot. In soccer, I was the guy who took all of our penalty kicks, for example. High pressure, big moments. Great. I want it all on me. And as I stayed at companies for a few years, always around year 3, I'd be 3, 4, 500 people in the company. And all of a sudden I'm in fucking like 9 meetings a day. And I need 6 signatures to get everybody to agree on a new flavor of LaCroix that they're getting in the office. It's like, what am I doing? This is miserable. Like, I'm not making an impact. I'm not changing people's lives at all. I'm not coaching. I'm not building anything. I'm just like tinkering with stuff. And that's not me, So I think that I, over time, just became very, very entrepreneurial in the sense of I like building things from scratch. And I like the pressure of that. And I like the reward of that. And so I just kept going back to it over and over and over. And I've stayed there and to the point where hopefully I'm synonymous with, early stage sales and revenue growth. You should call Scott. Nobody's done it more times as successfully. Like, that was my goal. So I wanted to be really, really good at this one thing, not somebody who's done okay at a million different things. So that's why.
The sports correlation is perfect. Not that you have to play sports to be good at sales or growing businesses, but there is a lot of correlation. Like, specifically, I played college tennis. I think you played tennis and soccer.
Yeah.
But I had like a lot of that same type of pressure situations. And I think it really built me to, like, when I stepped into the workforce, like to dive head first and like just take it head on. So, like, for example, we would have practice matches against each other, and if you lost, you potentially were out of the lineup in the match, like the actual match the next day. So you've got pressure on yourself in practice, and then you've got pressure the next day to actually win in the match. And it's just like it's ongoing, and then you've got teams ahead of you, so like they're just flat out better. So you need to practice outside and just like put in the work, because otherwise you're just going to get steamrolled if you're not improving on your days off. It's just like putting in the work. And I think a lot of that can translate. Let's just use an SDR as an example. Like, you can't just go to work and then just put in the hours and leave and expect better results. Like, you need to be practicing the script, your tone, different things like that if you really want to level up yourself in your game.
It teaches you how to lose also, and then how to let it go and forget. And it doesn't have to be just sports. Like you said, like, there's a lot of people who maybe were musicians or actors who had to get up on stage. If you've ever played in a band or something like that, or been a part of a school play, like, nerve-wracking, super nerve-wracking. I'm making fun of my son a couple months ago because there was like a spelling bee, and I'm like, dude, I don't want to stand up in front of, my whole class and try to spell this word and look the fool if I don't know how to spell it. Like, anything that we've all been in that is a pressurized situation. And if you do it time and time again, right, you start to get acclimated to that type of environment. It's like, I have a big sales call. It's not that you feel nothing. It's just like, yeah, whatever. I've been here a million times before, right? If it goes great, awesome. If it goes badly, shit, I must not have been prepared. I must do something different. I think it's really important to find people in that SDR function who have this type of experience. This is not sales experience. This is life experience. Right? They've been in pressurized situations. They performed well. They performed poorly. They've had to shake it off, get back up on the horse, try again. That's what you're looking for, right? Because what job is harder with a higher fail rate than a salesperson? I can't really find that.
That ability to adapt is extremely important. And honestly, they don't teach it much these days anymore. Coaching reps on how to adapt quick and just get used to failure. Because I remember one of the first things that I learned in sales was, I'm sure everybody's heard the saying is, for every 99 no's, you're that much closer to that one yes on the 100th,
Yeah.
But they don't really teach that anymore.
No. And I don't know why. They mask it behind work smarter, not harder. And yeah, I never understood why I can't just do both. Why do I have to be real strategic and make 4 calls today? Why can't I just be real strategic and make as many calls as I possibly can while also being strategic? So it's a shame, There's definitely something to be said for work-life balance and not losing yourself into your role, but we've really skewed the opposite direction a little bit. And, hard work and repetition and failure has gotten a bad rap. I know a lot of us wouldn't be where we are today without those experiences and wouldn't trade it for the world anymore,
How would you kind of go through and, telling a rep or just a salesperson? Because in my experience in sales is usually the ones that are the most successful are the ones that just grind. And it is a grind, to really get to that point to where you really have that kind of fuck you money, right? To where you can just take that one gig. Did you see the same thing when you were kind of coming up in sales and when you work with, startups trying to make the name?
With one kind of differentiator, I think most people can grind and get to the top of the mountain once. But then once you've been there and you understand what it takes, I don't think many people want to put themselves through that day after day, month after month, year after year, and they kind of say, well, I did it. I made $100,000 or I made $1 million or whatever the milestone is, right? But to be able to look at that and be like, now I got to do it again and again, or to look at it and be like, now I got to do, 1 point better all the time, over and over again across an entire career of years, decades, right? I've been doing this for 21 years. So I have somehow had to find a new why, a new reason to stay sharp, to stay edgy, to compete, not just against other people, but myself, new goals, right? And I think the best sellers that I've ever been around have that. They don't burn out. They create new companies or new challenge. They're hungry for new challenges and opportunities to learn and to push themselves. They're trying to find their own limits. And, you find a limit and then you're like, oh shit, I guess I got to figure out a way to go beyond that limit. And then you get to the next one. You're like, all right, well, got to find a way around that one now. That thing is like insatiable, basically. I don't think you can teach that. You really got to try to find it deep within people. I think you can help people optimize it and let it out a little bit, but it's got to be in there. And I don't think everybody has it.
I think that's one thing that's very difficult to try to pry out of somebody in an interview too. I just think interviewing is specifically for sales or an SDR role. Like you can try to find grit or struggles that people have gone through, but to go that extra mile, like it's just difficult. And I listened to one of your previous videos, Scott, and you mentioned that you were working, I forget the exact math, but it was like you're working a Saturday every week. And so you're like, if you accumulated the Saturdays, you're like, I'm putting in one extra week of work against my competitors or competitions. It's like, you can't really teach that. Like that has to kind of come from your background with the medical history as well as sports.
It was the one thing that I could control when I first got started. I got started late. For people who don't know, I got started late in sales. I was 27 years old. I had just spent the previous 4 years fighting for my life in the hospital and dealing with surgeries and opioid addiction from the pain medicine that they gave me. And there was no such thing as an SDR, BDR role back then. But, it might as well have been the same thing as entry level, make 150 calls a day type boiler room environment, Yeah, you can't replace that kind of experience. It's hard to identify, but you can flesh it out. I think, you ask people questions about, what's some of the hard things you've been through in life, and, whatever you're comfortable sharing. It doesn't have to be personal. It can be work. What do you want to share? You ask people about their hobbies, right? If somebody, says, well, what I like to do after work, I come home and I play with my dog and relax and watch TV. Okay, good for you. Somebody else says, well, I come home and I go to the gym for 2 hours. I'm training for an Ironman and I'm launching this construction business on the side. Well, that person I want to talk to, I'm like, how the hell do you have the focus, the energy, the determination to do all of that kind of thing? So, you find tips and tricks like that to try to pull it out of people a little bit as proof. I'm not listening for them to tell me, oh, I swear I have, unmatched determination. I want them to just talk about what they like to do, because then I know it's in them. I don't have to try to implant it in them. They already have it on some level, right? So that's what I'd be trying to optimize for.
I'd be curious how you take that kind of same concept and, apply it to a company that you're going to consult for. I'm sure that you're approached by multiple companies. You have to say no to some, right? What's really the differentiator, one that you'll take on and one that you say, no, this probably isn't going to be a good fit?
This is a good question. And most of my prospects ask me that question. And I usually tell them a couple things. I communicate really fast and respond to everything. I would probably consider myself like an over communicator of sorts. If John messages me somewhere, I'd be shocked if it takes me more than 24 hours to get back to him, regardless of platform.
You've been pretty good.
Yeah, I'm pretty good. And if you text me, like, response time is like insane, super fast. So I tell them that, like, this is who I am. This is how I like to communicate. Talk to me about your communication style. And so I have learned over the years that people who don't operate this way are not great fits for me, because I'm left in the dark. Like, well, what is Chris working on? Well, where is that thing? And like, what, I got to pester you for information? Like, that doesn't work well. So that's one thing, is just how often they communicate, how fast they communicate. The second thing is I need to ensure that they believe this is the most important thing that the company is working on in this moment. And they all try to tell you that, but then they've got to go to an engineering meeting and they're working on a big product release. They're fundraising on the side, so they can't show up. They had 3 demos yesterday, so I couldn't draft or revamp sales pitch or something like that, right? Okay, well, those are indications to me that they believe other things are more important. And I'm not looking to work with somebody who isn't ready to do this work and try to go really fast and thinks that there's other things that are more important. I'm not trying to diss on all these other things. I'm just saying, if we're working together, I want to move fast. My motor revs at a high RPM. I'm not looking to downshift and slow down, to appease other people and accommodate your schedule. You're coming to work with me because you want to get shit done and you want to get it done quickly. So I hold myself to a really high standard, and I want somebody else in a partner who's going to move at that same speed as me. So those are 2 really, really big contributing factors, Chris, to my decision.
And is that something you can figure out in let's just say, I don't know if you want to call it an interview, but your initial calls, or is it kind of like, hey, you have a 1-month trial period and you figure that out pretty quick in that 1-month period?
Well, I'm certainly not batting 1,000 at trying to figure it out before. Like anything else, people tell you one thing and they show themselves to not be that thing as much. But in the early days, I didn't really press on it much. Now I press on it quite a bit. And I look for stuff like, I don't know, this is maybe a bad example, but it's like, maybe I sent over a proposal and 2-3 days go by and I'm like, did they fucking get it or not? They asked me for the proposal, right?
Yeah.
So if they don't message me, yeah, I know this is maybe a bad example, but like if they don't reply back to me like, hey, I got it, give me a chance to look at it or whatever, I'm thinking to myself, that's not a good sign. That's not somebody who's over communicating. That's not somebody who's prioritizing this. Like, you came to me and said, this is the most important thing in the company and you want to get started on August 1st. How is it July 27th? And I haven't heard from you in 3 or 4 days. Like, that doesn't make sense to me, right? Now, maybe that's a bad example because it's around a contract, but same thing could be with scheduling the appointment. You got people come to you and they book time. Okay. So John, I want to talk to you about, level up leads. This is the most important thing in the business. Call is booked for 2 p.m. on Monday, July 27th. Oh, I cancel it. I got a conflict. I found time in your calendar for Thursday. They do it again for next week. Now I'm thinking to myself, no. This is like this is a red flag, right? Bad sign. Something's going on. They're chaotic. They're reactive. So, you're looking for little clues like that, right?
So that's one side of it, right? The people you're working with, and how much does the actual product come into play on? Is it unique? Is it just another fish in the ocean? How like that's got to be some part of the equation too, right?
I have two schools of thought around this, and it probably pertains to where I'm at now versus when I first got started. When I first got started consulting and doing all this kind of thing, I didn't really care that much, frankly. A little bit of a mercenary kind of mentality. I don't have like an industry I love. I don't have a type of product that I fall in love with. Like, I don't really give a shit. What I cared about was like my opportunity to build something special and be a part of something special. Now that I've been doing this a long time and I'm in kind of a different tax bracket, let's just say, now I'm looking at opportunities like, what can this become even after I'm gone? Is this a 9-figure or a $1 billion exit? Is this logo potentially going to be powerful enough to help me get other business versus just, I made some cash today? Does the tool actually solve a meaningful problem? Or is it the 9,000th AI note taker being released? Like, I don't care about that. That doesn't do anything for me. But if you come to me with a platform that is unique, different, maybe going after a sort of underrepresented sector or like an antiquated industry, I might be like, oh, that's interesting. That's $100 million private equity sale. I see that. Or you come to me with some revolutionary, AI avatar salesperson that, actually works. That's very futuristic. And now all of a sudden we got holograms selling to each other and all sorts of weird stuff. Now I'm like, okay, that's interesting. That's new. That's different. That's groundbreaking. That could be $1 billion plus company. So I look at it a little differently now from a product standpoint. And I do care a little bit more now about what type of product am I attaching my name to a little bit. But in the beginning, I didn't really care that much.
I would say that's one of the hardest things just from our perspectives, because we're approached by so many different types of companies, from startups to enterprise. And sometimes it's really hard to determine, okay, is this going to be a good account to work with? Yeah, and that's always something. Yeah, that's always something that intrigues me, is just other people's perspectives. You've been at it longer than I have, obviously, and just how you approach it. Now that you have a name for yourself and people are coming to you more actively.
Yeah, not all money is good money. There's definitely such a thing as bad money that's out there. So, you guys might talk to somebody and, in the vetting process where you're both vetting each other, you're getting some vibes like, man, I don't know about this founder's expectations. Like, they think they're going to get $1 million in pipeline next week, right? Like,
happens more than
that probably happens all the time. So for me, I'd have red flag, yellow flags going off all the time, But if you talk to a prospect that's like, listen, I'm not one of these other delusional founders. Like, I know this thing is going to take 3 or 4 months to like get cracking. That's like green flag to me. I'm like, oh my God, what a relief. I'm talking to somebody who gets it versus somebody who's crazy.
You actually said something similar to us, I think, a little over a year ago when I was in Argentina visiting John. And now we're in a more luxurious spot to where it's easier to turn people away, but it'll blow your mind. And I think it's just the nature of what we sell, right? Is we meet a lot of unique people and unique companies, but it'll blow your mind the amount of CROs you'll get into conversation with. And they're just like, yeah, but if month 2, we don't see, around 2 to 3 million in pipeline, it's probably just not going to work. It's like, what the hell do you think we are?
Yeah. In the early days when you're running a business like yours or a agency, a consulting business, in the early days, you want to fight that because you need or want the revenue. Mm-hmm. And you have this, maybe it's ego or, kind of chip on your shoulder, but it's like, I'm going to prove this guy wrong. Like I can do it, I can deliver or whatever. But once you've got more established and, your bank account is a little more stable or what have you, you're like, get out of here, dude. I don't need that kind of stress in my life, man. $3 million in pipeline by next week. Get the fuck out of here. Go work with somebody else, and there's a lot of power in that. And sometimes you find yourself saying no to fairly meaty deals. It's still hard. It's not like super easy. I'm acting pretty cavalier about it, but like, somebody's floating a $250,000 contract in front of me and I don't like them. I don't like their communication style. Their expectations are weird. It's still awkward, man. It's still awkward to be like, no. And I'm thinking to myself, why did I just turn down that money? God, that's stupid.
because you know
right?
you're avoiding a
But you know
massive
better,
headache.
and you learn from it.
Yeah.
You gotta be disciplined and force yourself to, not work with those types.
Yeah, going back to what Chris just said, it blows my mind. We'll get into some of these engagements with companies, and we're talking with the CRO, and he'll turn to us for strategy. We're like, dude, you're the CRO. How do you not have this figured out? Like, you're outsourcing this, and now you're wanting
I
to,
know.
to figure out your strategy. Like, what are you doing in the role? It happens all the
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like you said, it's the nature of the space that you're in and what you sell and things like that. And it's just ironic. It's like, dude,
Well,
you've been doing what we do. You know how difficult or impossible your ask is.
Well, it's funny too, because it's probably a reason why you wouldn't want to go work for these companies that are kind of established, because you have to work with so many people and, just get things signed off on. But probably about a couple months ago, I was in a meeting where there was 5 people from marketing asking me what they think, how we should segment their ICP. I'm sitting here thinking, like, we don't get paid enough. Like, we need to start tacking on consulting fees to this, because and it's just like, what are these 5 marketers doing? Like, it just blows my mind that who's cutting the checks here, building these teams where they have 5 people in marketing and a 0 pipeline.
No, there was also, Chris, there was that other one where they gave us the tier 1 target, and we looked it up on LinkedIn. There was like 4 people with the same titles that matched. So like, how's your tier 1 target? Have you looked into it?
Oh boy. Yeah.
Oh, man.
All right, but I want to. So Scott, you're in and out. You have eyes into a lot of different companies. What do you think are some of the best strategies in 2025 for building pipeline? Every company is going to be a little bit different, but what have you seen working for companies?
The go-to-network motion, the referral motion, that is the fastest, easiest way, I think, to go from 0 to $1 million in revenue that there is. Get a bunch of people to make mutual introductions. Everybody's asking about it. There's already trust. Those deals close faster, less churn, less support tickets, higher average contract value. So that's easy. Everybody should be doing that and turning it into a system. The second one is pretty obvious, I think, in the last few years. It's all kind of content creation as a demand gen tool, podcasts like you guys are doing, LinkedIn, networking, brand building, other platforms. John and we were talking about Instagram earlier and stuff like that, especially from on the founder level, right? Turning the founder and executives into their content into their own demand gen kind of thing. And that way you don't have to outbound and you got inbound flow. That's the second thing. The third thing I would say is working really well is in-person events, smaller kind of micro events, 10 to 30 people-ish. Could be dinners with like prospects and maybe seed it with a customer or two. I was at one the other day. It was a pickleball tournament. It was like 40 people there. That was great. Everybody's interacting.
Nice.
Got, easy way to get to know people and establish early bonds of a relationship.
Is pickleball the new golf?
Yeah, I think so. And it's a lot easier for everybody to play regardless of experience level, athleticism. It's also a lot cheaper, by the way, than golf. And then you turn your eyes to traditional channels, which just simply don't work as good as they used to. But of the traditional channels, I still think you need to use the phone. I still think you have to call people. You got to temper your expectations. You got to probably be way more targeted, more research, tighter ICP, really make sure you're relevant and not just
one thing
shit,
that works really
like
well,
that.
sorry to interrupt, Scott, is to call on top of an event that you went to, right? So it's like you warm them up, you go to an event or webinar or pickleball event and calling afterwards. It's like it's a much warmer intro than just going in purely cold.
Yeah, I can see
some
that,
of our best
for sure.
campaigns have been around that, especially when it's the higher the ACV, though, the more valuable that is, 100%.
No, I don't disagree.
Well, I'm kind of curious. I want to dig a little bit deeper on that, because I'm always kind of curious is, say you're a new founder, nobody knows who you are, nobody cares, nobody really knows your product. How do you kind of break into that initial network?
Say that one more time. You're a founder. You don't have
so you're a
network.
founder of a company. You don't really have an extensive network. Say someone comparable like yourself, right? Where it'd probably be relatively easy for you to spin up like a micro meeting or dinner or something with people that you would want to do business with.
Well, I think this is one of the reasons why you enlist other people to help you with it. This is the point of advisors, consultants, brand ambassadors. This is also to my earlier point about why it's important as a founder to grow your own network and create content so people know who you are. So if I wanted to do a dinner in Austin tonight, I could get 10 people to go with me. I'm not talking about my friends. I could make one post on LinkedIn and be like, I got 9 open spots for a dinner. Anybody who's a C level or above, meet me at, whatever restaurant. That thing is filled tonight. If you're a founder and you don't have that network, you got to start building one, number one. Number two, just that's what you partner with people for, pay them, throw them equity, whatever, get people involved, right? And there's 1 or 2 or 10 in damn near every city that there is. So I think it's a poor excuse to not execute if you just say, well, I don't know anybody. I don't have a big brand or whatever. Well, fucking find a way to make it happen. Go partner with a bunch of people. That's the smartest, easiest way to do it, I think.
Yeah, I think me and John have noticed that too, is just building out that personal network and just connecting with more people is more valuable than we probably originally put thought into.
Scott, one more for you. When you're talking or you go into some of these companies, they have hopefully something already established. What seems to be, if you can spot some type of trend as a gap in some of these companies in their go-to-market strategy, is there a common thread in what they're lacking?
Yeah, there's just actually a lot of common threads in what they're lacking. You might be surprised to know that most companies really don't know their ideal customer profile very well.
Not surprised.
Yeah. Well, it still surprises me how poor people are at this. I literally just got off a call where somebody said, we know our ICP. It's brands and agencies. Just like that. And I'm like, oh, from where? What language do they speak? What size is the team? How much revenue do they do? I just started asking all these other questions and they're like, well, yeah, it's, we like smaller ones. I'm like, well, why didn't you say smaller ones? Why haven't you spelled all this out? So they have too broad of an ICP in the beginning. They think, well, we can sell this to everyone instead of we should be selling this to one specific type of person right now because they're the easiest to get a hold of. They make decisions faster or whatever. We've got plenty of time to expand out later on. That's number one. Number two is their pitch sucks. Their messaging remains difficult for people to create in the very beginning for whatever reason. Founders have a tendency, for example, to over-explain everything. They think every little bit and key feature that their product can do is important and they want to describe it to you and share it with you. Nobody cares. Imagine you go to buy a car and the car salesman is telling you about every nut, bolt, and screw in the car, right? It's like, dude, I don't care about all that stuff, man. How much does it cost? What color do you have? And is it safe? Great. Get me the fuck out of here. Let me drive off the lot. The more you talk to me about all this other stuff, I'm out. I'm not interested. You're complicating it. You're stressing me out. You're elongating the sales cycle. So their messaging is not great at all. And the last common thread is most people are just trying to make phone calls and send emails still. And they don't know why they have nothing in the top of funnel. They don't know why their salespeople are frustrated and quitting. They don't know why they don't have pipeline. They don't know why they're not missing numbers. It's like, come on, man. You have got to get way more creative right now. I'm not saying stop doing those other things, but you've got to be way more creative. You might need to go visit people face to face. You might need to do some creative events. You might need to finally pay attention to content creation and networking. You might need to activate a partner channel, referral channel, all this kind of stuff. I don't care what it is. Direct mail, start sending people stuff, postcards, send them a postcard from Greece. Be like, hey, we were in Greece. We were just thinking about you. Here's what the view looks like. You should be here so we could chat. Whatever. It's different. The point is it's different. Those are 3 big themes I would say that I see right now.
Yeah, the ICP really stands out for us. It's similar types of companies that we're both working with. They'll come to us and say they know who it is, but then you realize they give you a long list of titles spanning across all departments. And so you're realizing that we're actually doing a 3-month test to try to hone in who their ICP is, not actually, appointment setting. Obviously, that's the end goal, but it's like it ends up being more of a discovery because if you don't know, then how are you expecting to see success from this? Like it just doesn't make any sense. So we see that all the time.
I think a lot of people think that building a really cool product is all you have to do, and then the dollars follow. I can't tell you how many founders I've talked to who at some point in my relationship with them have said, I used to just think if I built the best product out there that everybody would hear about it and see it and recognize it and then just buy. It's like, it doesn't work like that, man. The best product does not at all guarantee success.
Yeah, there's a few out there, but it's really hard.
Really hard. Very rare.
All right. So I wanted to wrap up this episode. Thanks for coming on, Scott. Tell people about where they can find you, contact you, and then also your upcoming conference.
Yeah, so I run these sales and leadership conferences called the Surf and Sales Summit a couple times a year, usually in Costa Rica or Portugal. This October, there's one in Portugal. It's the next one. We're sold out at the moment, but maybe somebody will drop out and you can get on our wait list. We're going to announce sometime before the year is out where we're going next year. So check that out at surfandsales.com. And you can find me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, TikTok. I'm all over the place, but probably the best way to shoot me a note is to just DM me on LinkedIn, and happy to be of service to anybody out there who needs some help.
Awesome. We'll put out all those links in the show notes. Thanks for coming on, Scott.
Sweet.
And until next time.
Thanks, guys.